They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Program to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed. Disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight on Rogue Ways, we are dipping our toes into some waters not often tread by sane individuals, because most people are pansy bitches who can't handle stepping outside the bounds set for them by their masters. But we are brave rogue warriors here, and we like to question literally everything, and we have nothing to fear from information and thoughts. So let's intrepidly seek knowledge from a fellow steward on the earth, a fellow living man, a fellow holistic advocate for the next 7 generations, and the co-host of the meme cast at thegratefuldisobedient.com, Mr. Andrew Benjamin. Welcome to Rogue Ways. How are you doing tonight?
I am better than ever and delighted to be here.
I'm so excited. We were just talking about how we just ran across each other in the sphere of the internet somehow and liked each other's memes, and here we are now to talk about slavery. But I do want to call all the rogue warriors out there to action for possibly a silly thing, but it's a very helpful thing and it is very worth your time. If you have just a moment, you can click below you wherever you are watching or listening tonight and go vote for Johnny Larson, wonderful musician and artist, for all the songs, all the logos, all the handiwork, all the artwork that you see on Rogue Ways and Middle Path. And he does all of that for us, and he is in this contest right now. So if you go vote for him, he's card 9 on the link you see below you. I'm also going to throw it in the chat for anybody who wants to just click over from the chat as well. And that would be very kind of you to do. I'm posting it as we speak. So please do that. Everybody do it. If you do it, you can even do it more than once from any email address you have. So thank you all for doing that tonight. And back to you with the pointless question of the episode, Andrew. What is your favorite meme currently and why?
Oh, geez.
Can you pick one?
Probably the one that we're going to be talking about here this whole time, just because we created it and it represents a lot of time, effort, and energy and learning about the nature of our world. This is probably the most important, one of the 3 most important memes that we made. They're all pretty important, all in the same one, but I think this one is pretty much a great segue into what we are talking about here. When we met on the thread, we were going to be talking about how to just decimate both sides of the slavery charade, because people are just caught into this false left-right paradigm of, just slavery of the highest, worst order. And it's really important that we recognize that both sides of the left-right paradigm, all of those below at the very bottom there, with your minarchism, with your classical liberals, with your modern conservatives, your modern liberals, and total socialism. I mean, they're all drenched in blood. It's really important to recognize that these are the culprits for mass murder and genocide on a scale incomparable to any other force mankind has ever known.
It's true.
So,
I've had people say Christianity's killed more people than anybody ever has killed, and I don't think so. I actually think it's government in general.
Well, it's most accurately called the cartel, right?
Right, or I like to call them the psychopath class.
Yeah, sure, something like that. But that's what they are. They are just psychopaths in every aspect of their nature. They wake up in the morning thinking it's okay for them to go about violating objective morality and natural law, which it is not okay for anybody to ever violate objective morality. It's wrong, and as a result of figuring that out. I mean, you can see immediately that there are, every time somebody goes about violating informed consent, there are negative consequences in their life, one way, shape, or form, or the other. It's there, and it all comes back. It's all about a recognition of cause and effect, really. I mean, you see, if somebody goes about violating informed consent, then they are rightfully criminally convicted, prosecuted for hurting somebody in some way, shape, or form or another against their will. And that's what this meme's all about, really. And it's designed, it's just a simple Venn diagram, right? Designed to show you how the dichotomy between this solipsistic, nihilistic, subjectively moral paper fiction slavery of the dead, and what on the bottom side, how that's below ground, right? Like that, like the dead.
Yeah. I love that. I love how the two circles do not even touch.
No, they don't even touch, right? Like they're not only do they not intersect, they're not even touching.
Right.
The land separates, right? You're either above ground with the animated contest of freedom, where you are, amongst actual law. I mean, how many people know that law is an acronym for land, air, and water?
I did not know that. I mean, is that like an official thing, or is that just what we're
Yeah,
saying for to be cool?
this was part of green language, but
Wow. Yeah.
land, air, water. That's what law is reserved for. It's reserved for nature. That's what law is. It's not whatever psychopaths decide to write down on paper this week.
I
Right?
like it. Just makes me think of what is his name? Ron Johnson, the guy from Parks and Rec, who kind of introduced us all to being free. Anyways, his thing where he just write down on paper like, I can do what I want.
I do what I want.
It's like, it's just as valid as what they wrote on paper telling you can't do what you want.
Exactly. It's in fact more valid
Yeah.
because
Right,
you
'cause it's
created
just for
it.
you, and it's not
It's
for
just for
anyone
you,
else.
right?
Yeah.
It's not anybody saying, "Oh, I can do what I want" to you, right?
Right.
It's you saying, "I can do what I want." And the way I've seen this and for a long time recognized that it's actually a birthright for mankind to have a valid contract with their world.
Yeah.
I mean, right? When did it just become a thing where we don't have a valid contract with our world because there's zero disclosure of terms, there's no agreed upon course of action, there's, and that's what we'll get into in some of the other slides, and we're gonna do a deep dive into this for like hours and hours and hours on the gratefuldisobedient.com. Shout out to Andy Brookshire, co-host on there. He and I put this together. It was a collaborative effort. For this whole thing, but yeah, the entire construct of what we would call quote unquote government down there on the bottom, below land, like below the ground in the world of the dead, all of those things, every single one of them are only with us as a result of mass murder, genocide, and theft, torture, just every form of coercion. As a result, I mean, people are scared, they've been traumatized, they're shameful and guilty. Which is why they allow themselves to be subjected to this just complete abomination of a Leviathan that should never have ever been taken seriously. But there's lots of reasons why I feel it has. We can talk a little bit about that too. But what's really important is the recognition of the top circle. See, that is a whole different ballgame. When we step into knowledge of who and what we actually are, we've got to care enough about what our recognition of this whole bottom side of these things and the other, and in comparison to the top side. Once we come into knowledge about these things, we recognize our true nature, right? But first, before we can get there, we have to forgive ourselves for what we did before we knew.
I love that.
Does that make sense? Like,
absolutely.
We've all made mistakes before we had the chance to come into knowledge and then learn how that's a mistake and to not do it again, right? Like sometimes we learn by studying other people's failures, and other times we learn from our own failures, and then we're constantly getting to a greater level of understanding through experience. And we've really got, it's so important to let go of all shame and guilt, That's, I think, the real reason why people are running around covering their face like a bunch of slaves. Just side note here, that slaves have been the only ones that have been required to be masked in polite society, right? Like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
throughout
I
all
saw
of
those
time.
images of like slaves in the past wearing these masks, and this is literally the only time people in public have been wearing masks. Outside of some people in Asia, I went to China once, and there was, some people wearing masks because they felt sick or something, I guess. I don't know, but China's also a pretty highly oppressed and repressed society, so who knows how you want to interpret that. But yeah,
100%.
I saw that same thing.
It's slavery. This is, in no uncertain terms, slavery. If any man claims a higher right to your body than you, that is their claim that you are their slave,
That they own you and
that
that you
they
would let
own you.
them do that. That's the other thing when people would argue with me about this injection. And I'd say, who cares why you can't force people to inject something, period. And they'd be like, well, I mean, they think that there's a microchip in it, and that's insane. It doesn't matter why you can't force something into somebody. Well, it's for everybody else's safety, and what about my health? I don't give a fuck what you do. You can't force something into, like, that's all you need to know. Nothing else matters. How is this even an argument? You don't belong to anyone but you. It's obvious.
Right. You steward yourself. Period.
Period.
I mean, that's end of story. That's not up for some, debate here. It is a recognition of the fact that you, as a result of being you, bear the consequences of bad decisions.
And good ones.
And
Yeah.
if you make good ones, you reap the rewards. That's the great news, right? Is that as soon as we make the right decisions and we learn to disobey psychopaths,
Yes.
right? Then we get to the place where all of a sudden now, after we care enough to forgive, that I still can't, I can't stress the importance of that. But notice it originates with care, right? We've got to know that we care about how our life goes because it's important, right? And we'll get back to why it's important, but it said it in the intro, it's the 7 generations principle. It's because of that, that everything that we do is so brutally important for us to really recognize our power, that we're standing on the shoulders of giants in the progression of the ancestors, right? I mean, this is a calling.
It's
to
sacred stuff.
It is sacred stuff. The gift of being alive. That's why it's called the present. It's a gift, So once we recognize that we are forgiven for our misgivings in the past, then holistic gratitude as who and what you are. I'm constantly screaming from the rooftops about this, that it's the fundamental nature of the self itself, consciousness itself, right? Is gratitude itself. It is appreciation itself. It is thankfulness itself. Like, it's that point of light that we all see behind our eyes, right? But the nature of that is gratitude in its most purest essence. So the challenge becomes, every time you think I, as in me, my, in reference to yourself in any way, train yourself to experience gratitude right there.
I love that.
The moment that thought occurs, train yourself for gratitude to be present right there at that moment in its essence, because that's your true, most purest nature. It's your most authentic nature.
We're so disconnected from that. There's, people who I work with, and we work on self-love sometimes, and some people just saying out loud to themselves, I love you, I love me, like, makes them bawl. They're crying, right? Because just saying it out loud is like, we're so separated from it. This must be one tool that is so effective for them, is to get us to separate from ourselves and hate ourselves even, and not give ourselves love and that gratitude that you're talking about when you're thinking of yourself. So what a powerful thing to be ensouled with, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the way they keep us separate from that, our true nature, is by getting us trapped into the illusion of the bottom half of the mean, right? Like, because we're convinced that this bottom half of the meme is all it is, all it's ever been. It's always been that way. You know, that we end up like those NPCs right there on the bottom corner.
Yes.
They don't look like they're having a great time, do they?
No.
I mean, there's a lot of suffering, completely unnecessary suffering, completely unnecessary. And it only exists because we haven't gained any sort of knowledge for ourselves. Like we've been conditioned out of asking questions about our true nature and the purest form of our existence. So a return to gratitude is so quintessential. Like there's recognition of who and what you are as gratitude itself. I mean, the next level of that is stepping up and saying that is in fact who and what I am. All these other names don't mean a damn thing as long as you recognize your true and most pure nature as appreciation and thankfulness and gratitude itself. Then we are on all levels of being, we are experiencing the fullest expression of our existence. And
it's so spiritual, you know, like I didn't expect this conversation to go so spiritual so soon, but everything you've been talking about, even when you were saying pretty early on, like, you know, there's cause and effect and your choices have effects. And so you are the responsibility player in that, and whatever you do, it's going to come back to you. And that's life. Like that's what's going on here. Well, that's the same as stating the law of karma, right? It's just cause and effect. Whatever you do comes back to you. Whatever you do, you create that. Well, now here it is. So what are you going to do with it? And now here we are talking about this deep gratitude on a level of who and what you actually are, where you are, that these labels, these names, these sort of identities like don't matter at all. And these are profound aspects of any true path of spirituality. So it's really fascinating that those are so connected. Of course they are, right?
Of course, this is a spiritual existence. Like,
seems obvious, but we're again another thing we're so separated from. We're not supposed to think or talk like that anymore. We're supposed to be materialists.
Yeah, it's not. That is a slap in the face of who and what you really are. To think that this all isn't being manifested through each one of us and through our decisions with each and every moment, right? It's so much power that each and every one of us has. A power that we have on the top left right there, where we recognize that do no harm and take no shit is the whole of everything. I mean, that, and as a result of that, we say no to those on the bottom that would attempt to enslave us into this fucking paper fiction. You know, it's a recognition of once we get that knowledge and we have experiential knowledge of it, then we can no longer be controlled by those that have been profiteering off of our lack of knowledge. Because if you don't know who and what you are, how the hell can you figure out anything accurate about what's out there?
Yeah.
If you're confused about what's in here, you can't. It's not possible. It's just starts from the very jump street, non-starter, right? The unbegun is what these just dark I mean, I don't even want to call it witchcraft. It's worse than that. I mean, these people are psychopaths. And witchcraft's not bad, by the way. I don't think there's anything wrong with witchcraft.
We just have to have words for this, because they're cast spells. They're working on that level of consciousness and conscious intention and manifestation. And what do you call that? Because it isn't. Witches are much more beautiful than anything these people are. But yeah, we don't have the right language for it, maybe.
Well, I call it the dark triad, right? The dark triad of solipsism, nihilism, and objective moralist, or subjective moralists. Yeah. So if you think morality is subjective and nihilism, let's talk about these words. Solipsism just simply means there's no such thing as truth.
Yeah, I hate solipsists. I'm like, why even talk then? Go live in a cave and die.
Right.
God.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Sorry, can I?
Yeah, you can swear all you want.
All right. Why would you even do anything if there's no such thing as truth? How could you even open your refrigerator without knowing that it's true that you have food in there?
Right.
Like, it doesn't make any sense, that concept of it. I mean, there is such a thing as truth, and we can know it, in fact, right? The nihilists would have you believe that, oh, even if there is truth and you can know it, oh yeah, well, it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah.
Who cares? It's just you're just a drop in a speck of sand on a ball of rock that's floating, some infant, like, who are you, you know,
Thousands of miles through an hour spinning through
with
empty,
this whole
meaningless space.
scientism, this whole scientism materialist worldview where you would, or people would have you believe that you're just an insignificant peon of existence, where you just don't, there's nothing that you can do, and you end up existing and feeling like those NPCs down there when you buy into that lie.
Yeah.
When you buy into that lie, there's a tremendous amount of suffering that comes with it. Oh, it's horrible. Like, the level of suffering that happens because we haven't gotten any knowledge about who and what we are. We allow any psychopath that's out there, any subjective moralist, to come in and tell us, oh, hey, look, these psychopaths wrote this down on a piece of paper. This is who and what you are. Or this is what you must do, because we don't know for ourselves with experiential knowledge. And that is what is like, that's why we put that number one at the very top. And and right below that, we have objective morality. Objective. Notice the difference between subjective and objective. When we say objective, it's a recognition that nobody is ever okay to violate informed consent. Informed consent is paramount to the existence of righteous interactions among men. Period. Like, without informed consent, it's all wrong. It's all coercion. It's all threats, duress, right? And we have to know that this is a natural law. This is a universal law. This is a divine law. In fact, the only one there is when it comes to interactions among mankind, which is just make sure that it's consensual and voluntary and informed consent. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only rule that has ever actually been legitimate. There's none of that stuff below all that. Below land has ever been legitimate, because it's all been based on fraud and guns and threats and I'm gonna kill you or steal from you if you don't steal from other people,
or I'm gonna put you in a box for the rest of your life. You're like, well,
do this or we can't. Here's the racket in a nutshell. Do this or we can't protect you from what we'll do to you.
Yeah. It's so awful. This is also that same way of saying objective morality. For me, I always say, like, well, if you don't have principles, like if you're not treating this from a principled place, then it's all going to go astray for you. You have to have this like line where you say, like, I don't murder. I don't not murder because someone told me not to or wrote it on a piece of paper. I don't murder because I don't murder. I don't believe in aggression against people, right? Or I don't steal. That's my principle. And so it's also applied then uniformly. There is no situation in which I do it, like we could get into like the non-aggression principle and where it is okay to defend yourself and those things. But yeah, that is the same idea, right? That you have to have your boundaries, your lines, your principles, and they are objective. You don't apply them differently in each situation.
100%. And that's what the being able to defend yourself is, what the take no shit part of it is.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, do you know a tiger that's born without claws? Or fangs to defend themselves? Well, right now, mankind has, we have limited tools in our physical capacity to defend ourselves. But if we are all armed, now we're talking about being able to stand. And that's part of, that take no shit component is so important, because once we recognize that we can't do aggressive harm, and we get the non-aggression principle in alignment, and that's how we go about our world, we also, there's a big difference between being harmless and peaceful, right? We can't go about being harmless, because then we're just prey. But we do the best we can to be peaceful. Part of the do no harm, use our words, right? Got lots of words. The better we get at using them, the more we will mitigate and no longer have to deal with any sorts of threats or duress or anything like that from people that would do us harm, because we have words that we can use to come up with agreeable, consensual, voluntary situations for everybody involved.
Yeah, Yeah, like I don't, whatever people may think about this whole trucker thing, the way that they organized this and pulled this off was with words also, right? They're like, hey, would you like to come with me and drive over here? Why, yes, I would. Okay, let's go. So there's another side of that, right? Where it's also, you're able to organize and create not systems, but situations and actions in conjunction with others based on this same set of skills of logic, reasoning, and using your words like a big kid.
Yeah, I mean,
who
I
knows
thought we were
what's
supposed to
avoided.
learn this. We thought we were supposed to learn this in the sandbox, right? I mean, like, hey, don't steal Charlie's toys. Those are Charlie's toys. Don't beat him up and take his stuff. Like,
use your big kid words.
this is mass madness. You see how this is like, how did this work?
Well, that's the thing too. I feel like when we were children, we had this inborn kind of sense of these things. If you watch kids playing, they make rules, and the rules are always geared towards fairness. And I'm not saying every child is perfect and that they don't do any harm or whatever. I'm saying if you watch them organizing play with each other, they make fair rules, and they're always based around these same principles. But at some point between then and adulthood, we get all messed up and destroyed and turned into these slaves down here at the bottom. Who are living underground.
Living underground, completely dead.
Yeah.
Because they haven't taken any control over their own mind yet. They're relying on that whole fictitious construct that you see right next to them for direction on how to go about living in the world, and all they're going to hear is fear, more trauma, more shame, more guilt. Obey, right? Like that's all they'll ever experience, because they allow themselves to, because they haven't asked the questions, right? They don't. I guess I can't imagine a life where I wouldn't ask questions. It just doesn't even occur to me to not ask these types of questions. But some people, I guess,
slaves aren't supposed to do their own research, and they're not supposed to ask their own questions. So apparently this is something we're celebrating now.
They listen only to the masses narrative, right? Like that's it. Only listen to their narrative, and that's how they come about. But I mean, objective morality, once we figure out who and what we are, once we've forgiven ourselves and we figure out who and what we are, then it's about objective morality as natural law, completely decentralized, which is simply recognizing slavery as theft, right? Don't steal, theft is wrong, period. That's it. That is the entirety of the most complicated rule that there is.
Yeah.
And by theft, that means murder, rape, assault, trespass, coercion, willfully lying to somebody, kidnapping them, or attempting to steal their shit.
I love that, because you're stealing their like you said, their ability for informed consent, or their ability to understand, their ability to choose for themselves. It's not always like taking an object, taking money. It's you can take
agency.
Yeah.
You can take life. You can take life. There's all sorts of ways for you to steal, and it's not just a physical taking of property. It's any violation of consent. Yeah. Period. Like, so consent and actual consent requires a meeting of the minds. How many people even know what that means anymore? It's actually legal jargon now. But a meeting of the minds is very, very, very specific. There are qualifications that have to happen in order for a valid meeting of the minds to occur. And any sort of violation of that level of informed consent, that's the only crime that is in existence. So doing any one of those 8 things that I just listed off, those are crimes, because there are victims, consent has been violated. But outside of that, don't worry about it. Just make sure you stay in that lane. Go about figuring out how to go about your life in a voluntary, consensual way.
Well, I want to hear what your description of the meeting of the minds is, because I guess I don't know what that means officially. And then I also want to talk about codependency, because I think this is another tool whereby people are incapable of this upper circle, because they need to. It's like they need to be told what to do, and they also need to tell you what to do. And they, all of this that you're describing is like, this creates complete independence, where you say, yeah, I'm going to do me over here. you know, and if anybody's into that, I guess come hang out over here. So like people can't even handle that. They're like, well, what will I do if no one's telling me what to do with my time? What will I do if I'm not telling you what to do with your time and how to do it? And that's just such a foreign experience for so many people, sadly.
Well, let's start with the meeting of the minds, and then I'd love to get into that. So the meeting of the minds is very simple, and there's several components to it. But first, it involves a full disclosure of terms, right? Like full disclosure of agreement. Like I'm going to buy your car, okay? And we write up a little sales agreement, right? Where it says this car is this amount of miles. I want this. I'm going to buy it. This is how much I paid for it. You know, any other contracts right there. And then as a result, and then included in that disclosure of terms has to be an agreed upon course of action, right? So once we have the terms, then we agree that we're going to exchange the car, right? And then, you know, sometimes, and you know, depending on the contract, maybe it's not the best, for example, for buying a car, but most often, especially when, you know, dealing with a contract that depends on performance, right? We need an auditable schedule. Where say, okay, are you holding up your end of the deal?
Yeah.
Or are you not? And in which case you have the right to rescind the contract and cut ties at that point in time. At any time, it's never too late to correct the record. It's always about recognizing that we are present and accounted for and competent, capable of handling our own affairs and getting to the place where, okay, yeah, this is the contract. I agree that my word is my bond. Right? That's another component of not stealing. Don't lie. Don't, you know, if you don't do what you say, do what you say what you do.
Yeah.
Period. End of story, to the best of your ability. You know, and then as a result of that auditable schedule, you know, we can also talk about potential third-party intermediaries, which is it's a well-established service that people have provided for millennia, and they're around today, and it happens all the time. If there's a dispute amongst the contract, then there's somebody that we can go to and say, hey, these grievances are X, Y, and Z. We think this is going to be a problem here. We want to figure out who's been wronged and make things either figure out how we can continue to do business or cut ties amicably and settle everything out and figure out ways that we can reach a state of compromise. These magical things called words are phenomenal to be able to do that. They're great tools, right? So it's about that recognition of all of these components being necessary for legitimate consent to occur. And when it comes to any sort of whatever's being stabbed into people's by the pharmaceutical cartel these days, if you look at the pull-out inserts in the packages for each one of the vials, guess what? There's nothing on them. They're not telling you anything about what's in them. There's no way anybody that you trust in the form of a quote-unquote doctor could do anything to warn you about any potential side effects, because they don't even know. They know nothing about this. It comes with blank inserts.
God.
Okay, like I've seen so many records of this. People take videos of it from inside because people are blowing whistles on this stuff all the time. And it's just absolutely insane that people would ever consider having anything plunged into their interstitial fluids. Blindly, without zero disclosure of any terms. But you know what? The thing is about this, though, what we have to really recognize is that it is both the deceiver and the deceived that are equally guilty, equally delinquent in their duty to mankind. Equally delinquent. There's no reason.
I have some level of compassion, forgiveness, whatever, but I don't have any compassion or forgiveness actually for the people just going along with this right now. I'm like, you chose that. Like, I'm sorry. I hate it. I don't know what to do for you. I can't do anything for you, actually. I just have to let you go off into your insanely ignorant space where you've chosen to do this to yourself and to other people too. If you're ignorant, that doesn't excuse you from going along with supporting other people doing this and helping them to do it or doing it to them as well. Like, you're a part of that. It's insane.
It
Sorry.
is. And the only way people get from the bottom diagram to the top diagram is through a sheer act of will.
Mhm.
You have to do it for yourself. Nobody's gonna do it. Nobody can do it for you. It's not possible. One has to do it for oneself. As a man, as a woman, where we recognize that nobody wants you to be free. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. You're much
Like,
more valuable to them as their slave.
as a commodity, as a member of this paper fiction slavery of the dead nonsense, that as long as you consent into it and say, "Yep, that's just the way it is," but the moment you say no, not just no, but hell no, like, and stand in that with the power of recognition of being able to say, "Fuck you, I'd rather die than comply."
That's the other thing is when people are like, well, I mean, I have to because I have to keep my job. No, you don't have to. You're choosing to keep your job by letting someone do this to you. You're choosing that still. That's you doing it to you. And I still don't, it's still your fault. You still are not excused from that
No, you don't get a
responsibility.
pass.
Right, and
There
I
will.
I get that it's hard. It's hard to not have that job, whatever. Well, like you said, like I'd rather die. It doesn't there is no more hardship than that, and I'd rather that than give up all of that top circle just to play this stupid game. Like it's crazy to me that you would exchange those things. Exchange your free will and your life and your soul for this job? For a job? Like wow. But like you said, if you don't even know what you are or who you are, or that you have this agency, you've never considered this, I guess that's how easily fooled you are.
That's it. And but as a result of that, yes, your delinquency and duty to mankind have, you deserve exactly what comes as a result of it,
Yeah.
because that's what happens. It's just the consequentialism. This is part of the Hermetic law. And, Hermetics, I strongly resonate with a lot of the Hermetic, the main principles for how that whole thing comes into effect, right? Cause and effect, polarity, and how everything can be looked at. Yeah, it's a phenomenal. I think we've done some episodes on those yet, but if not, we're going to be doing those soon, because it's so crucial to have an accurate worldview. Really, I mean, the accuracy of the worldview is so important for us to get to. Can't stress that enough. But yeah, and then this next one here. Actually, did you want to talk about codependence first, and then we'll get back to this?
Either way, you
Yeah,
whatever you want. Okay.
let's talk about that a little bit, because it's definitely a cycle, a vicious, self-fulfilling prophecy, a cycle of just furthering the traumatic experience. But what I've found is that, and this goes after lots of thinking about this and talking to people, and what I've found is that people are actually grateful for their suffering.
Mm.
It
Like
goes back to
they've
the
enshrined
nature of
it.
gratitude itself, right? The nature of gratitude, because consciousness itself is gratitude. They've created the suffering that they're grateful for because it's familiar.
Mm. It's true.
Because they feel safe in a place where they're the victim. They've been that way their whole life. And it's such a brief, and as a result of that, they will find people that are abusers. Victims will always find abusers. And then their hurtness will be fed by the other abuser's hurtness, and hurt people hurt people. Everybody keeps running around trying to change partners because they don't want to look at changing themselves
Yeah.
ever. And that's just it's a downfall, because they don't know who and what they are. The only thing that needs to change is their knowledge of who and what they are, and then everything will just change naturally. Then it'll just be second nature as soon as you recognize who and what you really are. It's just, but it takes it's hard, don't get me wrong.
Right.
Like, figuring this out about your true nature and going into the reality of your world there's a lot of trauma that needs healed, that needs recognized, and needs forgiveness ultimately.
This
Because
is
what we
this
Yeah,
is what
go ahead.
I because people will ask, well, what do we do? Like, here's the psychopaths, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, and like, there's this control structure, and it's everywhere, and it's worldwide, and everyone's participating. What do we do about it? And every time I say, you heal yourself. That's what you do about it. And they're like, that's stupid. I'm saying, what do we do about it? And I'm like, no, that's actually what you do about it. You heal yourself. And this is exactly why. And you've elucidated it so clearly here, how that psychology and spiritual side mixes with this external world. And, when you're talking about abusers and abusees, and the victims will always find the abusers can't exist anymore if there's no victims left. They create each other. You're creating this structure by participating in it, and by being the slave, you're creating the master. So what do you do to get rid of that? You stop being the slave, right? You heal yourself. So what you're saying is like so crucial for people to understand, because it's literally the key to freeing the entire world.
Is forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, you've got to forgive yourself first.
I agree.
Like, that is paramount. Forgive yourself first before anything else, and focus on that as long as it takes. There's no rush. Go through all the trauma that you've been through and find forgiveness in all of it. Because guess what? Without every bit of it, you wouldn't be here right now. Right? And it's the recognition of whatever has happened, it took that to get you here. And the fullness of the recognition of the gift that being here now is, right? How many moments are in a second? Every one of those moments is a brand new chance.
I love that. It's so beautiful. It's so freeing. It's very true.
It is. You just have a new chance every moment to create whatever it is that brings about the fullest of your experience. And oftentimes what I found is about this next bullet point right here is collaborative self-reliance. So crucial. It's about having people around you that are also on the paths of self-reliance, that can be of assistance, and you can assist them. You give, they give, and it's a beautiful symbiosis that happens when you're around like-minded people that are resonating in the same plane that you are, when it comes to figuring out what's really important, how to go about solving problems, that sort of thing. It's so crucial that we find the others around you that also are thinking this way, and then say, hey, let's figure something out. Let's each grow our own crop, and then you grow this, we'll grow this, and then we can trade, right? 2 people do that. We got a couple of friends doing it. A third person does that, and now all of a sudden you're growing a well-established, collaboration is what I like to call it, because we can, if we're collaborating in a competitive environment, then the end game for everybody in the space is to maximize results and do better than each other. And that just feeds our ability to steward for each other. And that's a word that I wrote into a document that I have on the website as well. So I strongly recommend anybody that cares about that sort of thing to go to the document and have a look.
They're asking for your website again, if you want to share it again.
Yeah, it's called thegratefuldisobedient.com.
Grateful Disobedient. I love that. That's so beautiful.
The grateful disobedient, because as soon as we're appreciative of who and what we are, we quickly learn how to disobey psychopaths, because we can see them for their tactics and their attempts to manipulate you into recognizing, and into believing lies about your own nature. Oh, you're just this. Stick to that. Stay in your lane, right? Like the whole corporate rigmarole of all that nonsense. Fuck all of that.
Yeah.
My idea is to replace the corporation with the collaboration.
I love that.
Which stays in alignment with its duty to mankind. Like, the only reason why we create fictions in the first place is because they have a duty to serve their creator, us, men, right? And women, or womb men, as I like to call you. But it's really important that we get an idea of why we create fictions in the first place, and allow them to be what they are. Fictions are slaves to the living. That's the reality. I mean, you create a fiction, you want it to work for you. That's what it is. Like a contract. That's what a contract does. It has clear terms where we can figure this whole thing out. And so really maximizing that collaborative self-reliance is what I feel the best possible scenario for the future is going to be, through this collaboration of fully decentralized, voluntary agora. You're familiar with the agora, right? How that works?
Yeah, but remind us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, agorism is basically a recognition of the natural marketplace. It's as simple as saying, hey, I have a car and you can fix it. And I have these special beans that you really love. So I'll trade you. You know, it's like, you want some beans? I want my car fixed. Bada boom, bada bing. We're both happy.
Yeah, that makes more sense. I guess in my head it was more about the like kind of sharing and competition and growth of ideas, but that makes more sense that it's a literally physical goods more so.
Well, I think it directly translates to market. Agora from the Greek, I believe. So it's the natural agora. It's how mankind has learned to solve problems over the millennia, because it's the essence of a consensual relationship. And so when you go about figuring out how to create consent around you, sky's the limit. There's nothing holding you back if you are able to create consent voluntarily with a full disclosure of terms after you've had a meeting of the minds where everybody's happy. That's called a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win game for everybody involved. And that as a man is our duty.
Well, and it's this like weird belief that there's someone else who needs to manage that for us. Like we're not good enough to do it ourselves. We couldn't possibly. We don't know enough. Where there's someone else who's better, and it's probably that random guy over in that like office that no one voted for and who was appointed, and that guy's probably the best guy for the job. And so I'm just gonna not think about it at all, not do anything. And I've been hearing this more and more and more, especially in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, and it blows my mind every time. I asked some people who I know, like, you're okay with censorship? Like, this is something you support? Like, oh yeah, well, those people know more than we do about what's dangerous or not, so they should be the ones who decide what we hear and read. And I'm like, I can't even understand this idea that you have given away your innate faculty to be able to choose for yourself what you understand, how you understand it, whether or not you want to be exposed to it, because someone else is better than you at it. Like, well, then become better than you or whatever. Like, why would you give it away? It's weird.
It's pure chicken shittedness. Yes. I mean, why not? If you can do something, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, right. and it makes sense. Like, oh, well, that person's better than me at baking, so I'll let them bake and I'll give them my magic beans or whatever, like we said. But that's different than saying I'm going to concede my ability to ever make bread or whatever. That's crazy.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody is an expert in a field and you want to benefit from their expertise and they're willing to allow you to benefit from their expertise voluntarily, consensual, and everybody's volunteering, and there's consent every way around, there's a common purpose. And that's really what...
There's no permanence. You're not saying forever you will do this and I will never do it again.
Right.
You're like, for now, this seems like a good arrangement. Let's do this.
This seems like a great arrangement. We're all benefiting here. Let's do a 30, 60, 90-day audit schedule and see if we're all still, gung-ho about this mission. We're all... that's the only way to make sure that people stay true to their contract, right? Is to be able to audit the contract and be, okay, you've done this X, Y, and Z deliverable, right? I've done this, they've done that, and we're all working towards the common purpose, which is the last bullet point right there. What is the purpose behind being alive? Right? Why are we here? I mean, all of us. This is ubiquitous. This is across mankind. The whole reasoning, the whole purpose behind existence is stewardship for the benefit of 7 generations from now. It is the way. It is the timeless, eternal way. It is what all of our ancestors realized about their time here. It's why we've been able to get here this far. It's like, it's that connection to your position in the procession of the ancestors, and the fact that you're standing on the shoulders of such giants of existence, right, to have gotten us here. And now the ball's in your court. It's up to you. With every moment, you decide. Nobody else. Nobody else just gets to take control over your agency. You alone bear the consequences and reap the rewards for your decisions. Totally up to you. And the thing is that if we make shitty decisions and we don't recognize this purpose, it doesn't mean that purpose no longer exists. I think of this purpose as objective, as it's as objective as we exist at all. Like,
it's literally why we still exist. Yeah.
Literally why we still exist. It's to pave the road, is to lay the foundation for this whole thing, for mankind as a whole. The way I see it, there's only two legitimate characterizations or categorizations of man. There's man, and then there's mankind, right? There's man and woman, but then there's their impact on mankind as a whole.
Yeah.
Yes, we can have individual cultural areas, places where we make our own decisions, but even still, it's all, I mean, the recognition of the impact of the man or the woman on the entirety of the whole of mankind, 7 generations from now, adds a whole new level of gravity to every decision you've ever made, doesn't it?
It does. And there's just a video that was very moving with the whole trucker convoy thing as well, where some guy's just saying, like, and he's crying and he's saying, I just got this, bag of food from this family, because the people are out there just giving food to whoever they can and helping this to continue. He opens his bag of food and there's, a cookie in there and this like heart bag, and there's a note on it, and he's reading this note, and it's this little 11-year-old girl, and she's saying, I'm good job, and I believe in you, and you can do it, and I'm only 11, so I can't do anything, but I know what's happening is wrong, and thank you for trying to correct it or fix it or help us or whatever. And I'm like, this is that same concept you're talking about. Like, this is who you're actually doing it for. You're not actually doing it for yourself, right? You're doing it because you know that the future depends on you doing it. The freedom in the future depends on you doing it. You're doing it for the children. You're doing it for the ones who aren't even born yet. And that, connection he was making there, and it was just bringing tears to his eyes, because I think it's another aspect that we've been disconnected from, is this idea that we have a responsibility to each other in that way, and that it does carry on, and that you're a part of that. And there's something really maybe terrifying in that for a lot of people, but there's something really empowering that is reconnecting you to that truth of who you really are and what you're really here for, that probably feels so good to reconnect to, because it's been so divorced from us.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just your own generations either. It's the entirety of mankind.
Yeah.
Every decision that you've ever made has had and will have a direct and immediate massive impact on all of mankind 7 generations from now. That is the importance of standing up right now in a time like this, with this just absolutely insanity of this authoritarian totalitarianism, this cartelism is what I like to call it. But really, we have to stand up. We have to let our voice be heard. We have to get on the record and say no. Never in a million fucking years. Absolutely not. And it's not going to go down like this for like what these psychopaths intend to do with all their bullshit. Not going to happen. No. Ever. Like, we're going to stop them in their tracks. And when enough of us say no, and we'll literally be able to ignore these psychopaths out of existence, because we'll have built up collaborative self-reliance redundancy in our lives. And so, like, if there's something you need, then there's a group of people that are working towards that goal, and you can definitely go to them and exchange whatever it is that they trust as value in exchange for their efforts. And that's the thing about money. Money has a synonym, and that is trust.
I like that.
It is.
Yeah.
Totally. That is all money ever is, because I trust that I can go to the corner store and exchange it for goods and services, right? It has value.
That's what when people are like, Bitcoin isn't money. And then I'm like, dude, like tables can be money. Anything is money if we agree on it. And like you just said, we trust that that agreement will hold. That's all
Yeah,
it
we
is.
trust. We trust. When I give somebody these little slips of shit tickets at the gas station, I trust that they're gonna push that little machine right there, and I'm gonna be able to walk out and put that amount of gas in my car. Otherwise, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Like, this is very simple. This is basic recognition of what this sort of thing is, and because very few people have any knowledge anymore, right, about what all of these things are in the spiritual war that we're in, where it's all about disinformation and well, I don't even use the word human, but taking the man out of people, taking the woman out of people, and just reducing people to these scared little NPCs that you see here down at the bottom, who are just running off these programs that have never, ever, 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 ever been legitimate or in your best interest for any reason at all, ever. Like, I mean, who was it? It was Malcolm X. My favorite quote from Malcolm X. It said, "Only a fool lets his enemy teach his kids."
Yeah. Like
Only a fool.
you let some strangers hold your child hostage for the majority of its time awake. That's crazy.
Not even a stranger, a known psychopath.
True.
Like, I'm not talking about some rando. I'm talking about somebody who's a known psychopath being responsible for determining who is going to teach your kids, which is the reason we're in this mess in the first place, in my opinion.
Truly.
I mean, it goes all the way back to the inception of the Department of Education back in the 50s after World War II, and what they learned in World War II and how they went about going about setting into place the Prussian model for education.
I was the only teacher I've ever met who was for the abolition of the Department of Education. The federal and state levels. People are like, what are you talking about? You work for them. I'm like, I don't have to, though.
They maintain a stranglehold on the minds of our offspring, of our youngins. Like, because we let them tell our youngins how to go about being in the world.
We destroy their
if you
little
let
souls,
slave masters
too.
train your kids, are you going to be shocked and surprised when they come out slaves?
I'm shocked and surprised that we made it through and freed ourselves mentally from this, you know, like that's what's surprising and cool. Hopefully more and more people do that.
Well, it's only a choice. It's as easy as saying no. That's it. No, because you've never legitimately been anybody's slave.
True.
That's the thing about man. You are free. It's to stand and walk on the sovereign land and have your interaction with nature in a way that is a part of the entirety of the whole. Just a drop in the ocean of the Most High is what I like to call it. But it's the recognition of that.
You're free to make yourself a slave.
You are totally free. You are totally free to be a slave. Like, if you want to do that, and that's the impact that you want to have on mankind 7 generations from now, that's how you'd want to see more of happening in the world, where, you know, it's that impact that you have. And to separate, there's no possible way to separate yourself from that impact, because it exists, whether you know it or not. What you have a different impact if you do something or if you don't do something. Either way, there's an impact there, right? It's part of just resonating with the entirety of the whole of mankind, and that is what we now are. It may be trendy to call a 5th dimensional sort of thing. It's in differentiation between the 3rd, but really it's about all levels of dimensionality. It's not just a 5th. It's about all levels of dimensionality. It's this principle that resonates, that creates, and to stand in that power is who and what you really are as gratitude itself. So, I mean,
that's back to that objectivity, right? There is no limit on it in space and time and dimensionality. If it's objective, it's just there. It's true.
It's there, and it's fully available to you as long as you take a step into your own power and enter the animated contest of freedom. That's what this is. There's no certainty. There's danger around every corner. Danger is real. Very, very real. It's what, you know, the ego is a great thing to help you avoid danger, right? It's kind of good to keep it in check, but never let your ego control you, because then you'll just be stuck into this materialistic trap. But if you keep your ego in check and say, hey, ego, help me out, avoid danger to the best of my ability, and then I'll take it from here, bud. Just stay down there, and we'll just, it's really important that fear is an illusion. That fear that we have down there, fear is helpful only at like the moment when it's like you gotta fight or flight, like, and that's what you can use your ego for, when the ego is necessary to use fear to save your life. Like I have a fear of crossing the interstate center line, right, with into oncoming traffic.
Yeah.
Because the ego says, yeah, it's probably a good thing to keep the skin suit around for a little while, so let's just do that. But we're really talking about resonating on the highest, on all levels of being, and in that space, there's no such thing as fear.
Right. And this is another important point that I know I know it gets made and people, but you have to really think about it and apply it to yourself, I think, to realize that fear doesn't really stop. It doesn't really go away. It's there, right? And that's part of that, like, taming of your ego, is to say, like, thank you, fear, you've done a good job, I understand, and I'm like, I've got the adrenaline when I need it, whatever. And the rest of the time to say, yeah, the fear's still there, but I'm acting despite it. I'm acting in spite of it, and I'm behaving in this way because I choose to consciously. You rise above your fear, right? And that's like what courage is. But it's also what all of us need to do right now, because it is scary, to act, especially outside of the programming, especially when the masses are carrying this alongside you and about to punish you for your misbehavior. It's really important to be able to manage your fear and act despite it.
Well, yeah, recognize that fear it can be a tool that the ego uses for a certain level of self-preservation legitimately. Like, that's a good thing it can be used. And I'm not saying, well, fear might even be the wrong word for it, because it doesn't really serve us at any time except for the immediate instant of fight or flight. But even then, it's good to not have the fear so that you can have clear mind when you're responding to those types of scenarios. So maybe fear is just the wrong word for it. Although it's programmed into everybody to be scared all the time.
It's a very good tool. It's an exceptionally good control method.
Oh, your fellow man can be a vector for your disease. Oh, be scared. Be scared. Bullshit.
I'm way more afraid that you're gonna like attack me or try to put me in a cage for not doing what you told me to do, than you probably are about getting some random virus from me or whatever. Like, I think mine's much more of an existential threat, actually.
Well, it's never gonna happen as long as you know who you are and who you are not. There's a spiritual side to this whole thing, of this entire experience, and it requires your consent. If you know how to remove your consent from this entire slavery construct, then it no longer exists. It only exists for those that consent into it, really, because they agreed to go on and consent in these contracts of what they've always done their whole lives. And, there's a lot of knowledge that can go into figuring out all the different ways that we have thought that not really consented. We've been tricked. We've been coerced in many ways into doing this, when all it took this entire time was for us to say no. And the entire slavery charade crumbles before. I don't care what side it is. I don't care if you're flying a red flag or a blue flag or whatever flag. It doesn't matter. They're both below ground. They're both only responsible, or the only people that actually matters to are people that have given up their own agency over their own mind and accepted the master's name. I encourage everybody to go back and watch the movie Roots. If you haven't seen it, watch it.
Tell us why.
Well, just look out for when Kunta becomes a slave. I'll just leave it at that. He went from free, and somebody who was fighting, trying to get away, to now, okay, I'm a slave. He's given up. His will was broken at that point. And what happened exactly at that moment in that movie is how we today still find ourselves enslaved. It's crazy, but it's symbolically been in front of our
You
face through
have to tell us
their
now. I can't wait.
through their media. Oh, well, you'll have to watch it. Maybe we'll talk about it on the next one, but I'll leave that one
I've
because
watched it. I just have the worst memory ever, so I'm not going to remember what what it
well,
was.
it's the moment that Kunta became Toby.
Ah, oh, that's interesting.
The
Yeah.
moment he accepted the master's name was the moment he became a slave.
That is fascinating. That's a really good point.
And what do we do all the time now? Allow this world to name us, don't we?
Yeah. And then that literally becomes this legal fiction that is used to
Part of the paper fiction slavery of the dead.
Yeah.
Still going on today. Because are you a piece of paper?
No.
I'm not either.
No. And this whole system is built on that fiction.
It's all built on that paper fiction slavery of the dead. Because no, I've never met a living piece of paper. Have you?
No.
No. So, yeah, that's what that movie's all about. It's a powerful allegory of slavery. Still go back and watch it, though. It's really, really, really important to recognize that slavery has never been abolished.
Very fascinating.
Has never been abolished. It only changed forms and went covert. They took the chains off and put the chains in your head.
And we're all carrying them around to this day.
They took it off your wrist and put it in your head. And as a result of that, we go about suffering through this slavery. But the moment we know who and what we are, we say no to any of that bullshit. Then we step into the living where we're actually on land, walking, feet in the dirt, air in your breezing through your hair, looking out at the water, in alignment with law. This is the animated contest of freedom. This is what is so important that we figure out and note what we really have here as a result of being alive, and how appreciative that we really can be with every moment of the gift that we get in the present.
Yeah.
That's why they call it a present.
It really is a beautiful acknowledgement and reclamation of self and will. And it is terrifying to so many people because they're like, well, who's going to build the roads every fucking time? And you're like, you can build the goddamn roads. There's all these people, actually. It's actually really funny if you've seen these people who go around filling their own potholes and they're like, look, my price tag was like $10. What's the government's price tag for this? Like 6 months and $7,000 or something. There's nothing that you can't do better than whatever they're doing. There's nothing to fear in that. We've been actually doing it for ourselves for who knows how many thousands of years, a lot longer than this legal fiction system has been around.
And it's just, we're disconnected from our ancestral knowledge, right? Like, look back, what happened before 1913 when there's this whole thing, when this whole, well, I don't even want to say it, but, when they legitimized theft of whatever you earned, right? Back in 1913, there were massive roads everywhere you went. Yeah. Like, I mean, if you look at history, I'm a big guy. I look at alternative historical viewpoints to official narratives and delve into some waters of some very fascinating things. It's another thing that draws my curiosity quite a bit, which, because it's his story, right? It's his story, his version of the story. What's our story?
Yeah.
What's the real story?
Very clearly suppressed and very clearly much higher technology than we have now.
Well, the answer is freedom. To just find out, to decide, to figure out what the best technologies that we've had in the past are, so that we can use those technologies to impact posterity of mankind. I mean, it's our duty. This is our duty. This is our time is now. I don't know if any people do you think most of your audience has seen the most recent Matrix movie, right?
I don't know. Probably a good amount of them, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
spoiler.
The last line of the movie. I think I can say this without spoiling. We didn't come here to ask for your permission. We came to build our own.
Yeah.
right?
That is actually really cool. I really hated most of that movie, but that line now that you saying it again makes me appreciate something about it at least.
There was actually a lot to appreciate in that movie. Symbolically, yeah, this is coming from somebody who's watched every one of the first three at least 100 times. Okay, so
you're really deep in it.
I mean, it's such a profound allegory, and they're telling
I'll just say my
right to your
gripe.
face what's happening.
My gripe is that Neo could have actually destroyed the machines way back when, because he could do anything inside and outside of the Matrix, and he didn't. And instead he was like a little pussy bitch and just gave up and was like, okay, we'll just do what you want then. And I'm like, what? Why? What? You had the chance to free everybody and you just laid down and died? Like, I don't understand that. That's why I hate everything.
Yeah, well, it is great though. It
is a good allegory.
There's so many exoteric and esoteric levels to that movie, right? The makers came out and said it was all about their transgender experience, right? But the way I see it, that may be exoterically what's about.
Yeah.
But esoterically, it's about the actual return of the sacred feminine.
And I love that. I love the sacred feminine and I love the sacred but I feel like they neutered the sacred masculine in the previous movies, and then it never actually got its spot, right?
Yeah, well, a return of balance between the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine, right? There's an out of balance that's on both sides right here.
Yeah.
But as soon as both sides return to a state of balance, then we can go about recreating this entire narrative.
It's really true. They're both sacred masculine and sacred feminine have been under attack and have been in imbalance. And it's just like we were saying earlier about the abuser and the abusee, the master and the slave, they actually need each other to exist. And so once you just step out of the game entirely, all of it falls down. It's the same with the masculine and the feminine. They actually need each other in order to exist in balance at all. And if you are out of balance on one, the other one's going to be out of balance. So when we talk about feminine oppression, female oppression, well, it's also masculine oppression, masculine oppression, masculine oppression. They're both happening at the same time.
100%. It is a balance. It's the yin and the yang.
Yes.
Right. It's as above, so below, as within, so without. There's an equilibrium that exists. In order for a field to be in resonance, it has to be in that state of balance and equilibrium. And that's really what this is all about. And getting mankind as a field back to a state of resonance with the rest of nature. Right? Nature exists in a state of balance. How grateful for the flowers to be.
Yeah. This is the whole thing that, I keep pointing out too, is in the end, if we don't choose, if we don't have our lack of choice is a choice in itself, but if we don't exert our will and take things back and, be our true selves walking upon the land and the air and the water, then, nature will do it for us. Nature's going to find balance, and we're out of balance right now. So we can
nature will find somebody to enslave you. If you're going to act like a slave, right. Nature will find somebody to enslave you. But the recognition of this top part right here makes man unfit to be a slave, because you actually have your own objective moral code that you're able to go about existing in this world in resonance with. That's the animated contest of freedom. I don't know who said that the first time, but I love that sentiment, because it is a contest. We're all contesting for who's going to go about solving the biggest problem for each other, right? That's the whole purpose behind the nature of industry. It's solving problems. Hey, you have a problem? We'll solve it here for you with this product here, 1995, right? But that's what we're all doing here. We're attempting to solve problems. And that's what the contest is who can solve the best problems with solid feet on the ground, connected with the land, the air, the water, standing on the shoulders of the ancestors in order to empower 7 generations from now with a quality of life that includes the highest level of self-determination, way beyond what we've ever experienced. To the best of our ability, we've got to keep the ball moving in that direction versus falling down into the rings of hell that encompass the bottom there.
Yeah. Yeah, and where do you think we're at with that? Do you think we're making progress? Are we winning? Are we headed that way in any meaningful
There's some
form?
of us that are. I think there are more people right now asking the right questions about who's really got their boot on their neck than ever before in the history of all mankind. Like, they've really screwed up. They screwed the pooch hard on this one because they played their hand way too hard, way too fast. And there were enough people that have been onto their bullshit for generations. They've never really gone unnoticed. There have been the voices out there to say, hey guys, wake up. But most people don't even hear it because they'll only look as much information as they're force fed through the mainstream media in their educational classrooms. But if they actually, the people that have been asking these types of questions have been on their path for a long time, and they were taking them out way
Literally.
before. Like, that's what how many doctors they've taken out because the shit the cartel's gone through. Oh my, dead doctors don't lie, right? Like, this is important shit to these people because they cannot let this getting out about the nature of who and what we really are. It's because they're only able to profit off of us because we don't know this. And it's something that so sorely needs to be known. And I think that this meme does a great job of kind of encompassing a starting point for a frame of reference of how to go about looking at solutions, which is just simply real knowledge, true knowledge. And it's so important that we figure this out. I can't state that. I can't scream that enough from the rooftops.
No, I really think it is the key. It is the thing. It is what we have to do. And it really starts within you, and it really starts with your understanding. And this is a beautiful, well-crafted presentation of this. I don't think we mentioned it on the show, but we were talking a little bit beforehand that, memes are actually the best tool we have to spread information like this. This is a perfect example of why. This is literally everything you would need to understand about the system and how to free yourself from it. It doesn't tell you every detail. It doesn't tell you every step along the way. It tells you what you need to know in order to encounter anything in life and respond accordingly towards freedom. And, there's people who, for whatever reason, look at memes as this degradation of human skill and thought and ability. And it's so interesting. It's so weird to me that you could objectively in any way look at this and not see how much effectiveness is packed into it in this one little square, that it's visual and you can just take it in. It's just fascinating. There's some people who have such a violent response towards memes and hate them. And I love that this has been the centerpiece of our entire discussion tonight.
Well, simplification poses a great risk to those who profit from unnecessary complexity.
Very good point. Unnecessary complexity is another term that should maybe go on here somewhere.
Unnecessary complexity. It's all unnecessary complexity, because when we step into the truth of what objective morality is and we harmonize our life with it, we are consistent with ourselves. There's nothing that the fiction can say, because you know who and what you are and who and what you are not.
That's a beautiful thing. I had another thing I wanted to share was that not that long ago, I said something to the effect of what we've said tonight, but, in very condensed form as a Facebook post. And I basically said, there is no peoples anywhere that we know of in our written history that have not been enslaved and have not enslaved. It's interesting that we're so focused on one little group of people in history that was enslaved in a specific way, and that we ignore the slavery that we've all undergone and are still undergoing today. And just bam, bam, bam. People are like, how dare you? You racist. You white supremacist. Unfriend, unfriend, unfriend. Wow. Just mentioning that this slavery exists and always has sets people off. They can't even think about it. They can't consider it. Which again is actually why we need to share memes like this and say things like that out loud. Because at some point, people have to confront their own slavery.
Well, you can't forget a meme. That's the thing about memes, is once you've seen the meme, you've seen the meme.
That's true.
I think that's the real viral contagious pathogen right there. They just have their effective meme dissemination, pumping pathogenic memes into people's brains, right? Constantly with their media machine. And as a result of that, that is the only contagious pathogen that has caused the most amount of disease. And this is all memes. This is the number one law of hermetics, right? The number one of
everything is mental.
Everything is mental.
This is what I think people don't understand about what meme actually means. Is just an idea that spreads. That's it. We just talk about it now in form, picture with words on it, but it's actually the idea that spreads. That's a meme.
I like to call it the most fundamental building block of an idea, analogous to your quote unquote genes in your body, right? Because you can have you can establish an entire worldview off of this one single root, like axiomatic level of thought that can be portrayed with a simple Venn diagram.
That's beautiful.
And then you meme it because you put a chat on there with some NPCs and it's a nod to them. And it just, anybody can do this, right? So what we also thought about is releasing this as a template on the website so that you can put your own whatever, or you don't even need to use this template. You can just build your own. It's real simple with the Venn diagrams and all that, but just figuring out what two sides of any angle are and then draw a Venn diagram and say, all right, how do they oppose? What is the purpose? How does that align? And then make your decisions as a result. I don't know. It's just a great, very helpful mental exercise.
Very helpful tool. Yes, and it is the way to spread this around in the whole world. And what is it in this upper corner here? It's clearly a man saying something. Or
oh, that's actually if you want to pull up the gratefuldisobedient.com.
Yes. Let me do that. Come on. It doesn't want to come over. Oh, there we go. I don't know if you can actually see this. Wait, let me try this differently. There we go. Why does he look so familiar?
That's Thoreau.
Oh, I love Thoreau.
That's disobedience is the true foundation of liberty. The obedient must be slaves. That's his quote.
Such a beautiful
and that's kind of, it's that graphic right there condensed into a little corner shot.
That's perfect. Yeah, what did he write? Oh God, it used to be like one of my favorite books, and now I can't even remember the name. On disobedience or whatever.
Walden Pond, or
didn't he also write the civil disobedience?
Yeah.
And Walden is also underscores everything we've been talking about. You go out to nature to truly live and to really to
find gratitude.
Yeah.
See, that's how nature operates, is gratitude, is through that reciprocation, through symbiosis and appreciation for the next step in the process. How grateful is the predator for the prey, and the prey for the predator, because now the prey gets to move on to its next round. It's not clinging to this round. It's ready to go, right? It's got something else to do. So fuck your team, right? I've got a whole vault on here. And I'll burn all these, like they're all represent the bottom half of the diagram, right? Yes. Every one of these flags that we go around waving. So here we have all the lists of the meme casts that we do. We go pretty hard. And you can click through each one of them. And I really think what's happening in Kazakhstan is a great thing to figure out. And so we go pretty hard into these memes. If you guys have enjoyed what you heard here, I think you'll really enjoy it. We talked about the mentalism, the Perfect. Correspondence.
Yeah. This might be the next best show, guys. If you haven't checked it out yet, you want to go to thegratefuldisobedient.com. I'm guessing this is also a YouTube channel you can subscribe to.
No. We're all on decentralized platforms, so we get banned.
Better.
In case you didn't know, I get banned pretty quick on my Facebook. You think? I mean,
I've noticed.
I'm constantly banned off every platform because the last thing, nobody's going to want to give you the information it takes to overthrow them.
Yeah.
Like they don't want you actually gaining knowledge about the logical fallacies. Oh, that's a great one right there.
I love that. We did that on Rogueways once too. I'm like, if
I
you
went
don't
through every
understand
single-
logical
I went-
fallacies, you're gonna
Oh.
fail.
I went through every single logical fallacy, all 24 of them.
Nice.
And added and showed exactly how this COVID's narrative
Oh,
violates
perfect.
every single one of them. All of it from the very roots, axiomatically.
I love
It is,
that.
its very existence is a violation
We
of
just did-
every one of the logical fallacies.
That's
And we
perfect.
just the very concept of the possibility of its existence. And then on the meme vault right there on the next tab over,
We did the logical fallacies just themselves. It's so much better to have this context to apply them to in a very applicable, direct, meaningful way. I love that. I'm sure that's a great show.
which is so important though. Like, fuck, we need to do this.
Yeah.
We need to do this. And then here we have a whole bunch of memes.
Let's go kill Kennedy. Yeah, I had someone saying to me last night, they're like, "Oh, why are you still on your channel, and why do you still have reach or whatever if you're not co-opted?" And I'm like, dude, I get fucked with constantly. Like,
Oh, yeah.
sorry
Anybody
you
that's-
didn't know. It's not my fault. I'm still on YouTube. Like, Jesus Christ.
Anybody that's saying anything.
Gets fucked with constantly. I don't know what's happening, but here we go. Here's some of how we're
Oh,
getting
yeah.
fucked with. Anyway.
And so you can just go through all those memes and you can snip out anyone you like. We don't have them in a savable JPEG at this time, but we'll probably get that figured out. But if you have a laptop, you can just use your snip tool and just do
Yeah.
a screen grab like that.
I love it when people ask. They're like, "Can I take this?" I'm like, "Dude, it's a meme. That's what it's for."
Yeah,
Do
it's only
whatever you
designed
want with
for
it.
it's only designed for you to spread it. Like that's what it's for.
That's
And so each
amazing.
one of these have if you scroll down there,
That's very true. Oh, here's where it crashed before.
yeah,
Might be the best. Might be the best we get.
oh yeah, if you just pick the vault up, you can get the whole I think we've got the whole thing in.
Well.
Yep. So there's that, but maybe there's just a lot of people checking it out now.
Maybe that would be the best hopeful outcome.
Be the hopeful outcome. But yeah, there's the vault, and then there's the document there that is an example of what a voluntary, and if on that there's a forum where you can throw some thoughts in there, and there's also
Awesome.
yeah, we got a Facebook group you can hop on there as well
While it lasts.
while it lasts, but it probably won't because I get 6 notifications of people saying shit they should. Facebook thinks they shouldn't.
I love that. It's like that people are posting things in your group that are whatever. I'm like, "Oh, thanks for telling me." Fascist.
Oh, no.
Like, what the fuck?
They're
didn't
bashing
ask you.
they're bashing our narrative.
Things people have shared have been marked false by independent fact checkers. I'm like, yeah, independent fact.
Right.
Sure.
What a joke.
This
These
is
people-
great.
These people are clowns. And then there's this document here that I wrote, and it's a prototype document. It's a prototype document. It's not a final draft by any stretch, but it gives you it's a jump off point for what it could look like to have a valid contract with your world. And what I think of it as when I think of a document that could represent a future iteration of what a birthright type of contract could look like, that when somebody reaches an age of consent, right, they can actually say, yep, it's mine, and this is mine, I'll sign this in my own blood.
Are you
Like,
seeing this?
It's that serious.
Are you seeing the document right now?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. I was showing it, but in case you wanted to mention anything on it, I just wanted you to see it too.
Oh yeah, this is just some poetry that I wrote in the very beginning to kind of introduce the, kind of get somebody into thinking, setting the space for what
What it's all about.
it's all about. Yeah, what it's all about. And then we have some words, defining terms, and that word right there, that flashover word at the very beginning, is a very powerful one for me.
What was it?
Flashover, the moment a conversation becomes real and alive, which occurs when a spark of trust shorts out the delicate circuits you keep insulated under layers of irony. Oh, that word irony is just the essence. That's just like momentarily grounding the static emotional charge you built up through decades of friction with the world. Decades of friction just built up so that there's all this static emotional charge that when that flashover happens, it just is able to release a lot of that.
Cathartic.
Yeah, and an important catharsis, right? Like, needs to be done for the entirety. And we've got to, like, it's inevitable. The flashover moment of catharsis where mankind just says, no, we're not going to listen to psychopaths anymore, is upon us. That's what this whole thing is. It's kind of a blessing in disguise, right? Because it's showing everybody who the psychopaths are, the ones that are attempting to violate informed consent, hint, hint, right? And then we can go about creating something that is in alignment as a valid contract with this world. So yeah, and that's
perfect. Yeah,
so
I
yeah,
feel like that. It's like a flashover point for the whole world is happening right now. And this is why, a lot of people say like, oh, well, it's the black pill, right? Like they're in control of all of this. All of this was planned. Like none of it is real. And and I'm like, well, then it's just like the solipsis thing. I'm like, then fucking give up. Stop even talking to me. What's the point of you living then, right? If you believe fully that they have absolute control over every single thing that happens and that there is no hope or chance, give up. Stop talking. There's no point in existing anymore, right? And so, and if you actually realize that there is always a chance, there's always a hope, you're always free, and you can always choose to do what you would like to do, then let's do something, right? It's just very interesting. That's another. I'm glad that you brought solipsism up because it occurs in this community, especially in all sorts of ways, and it comes in the form of that black pilled sort of.
oh yeah, no, I can't stand that. I have no time for somebody who's just gonna sit there and mope. Like I don't hang around victims.
Yeah.
I hang around doers, people
Right.
that think, people that are actually making moves and trying to refine their next one so that they can do the best they can. And that's all that's on each and every one of us. That's our job, is to do the best we can.
Right.
Constant and never ending improvement. Forgive yourself for what you did before you knew this. And from this moment forth, operate differently. It's totally possible. Right? Like, it's
Absolutely.
not only possible, it's incumbent upon you to do so. How long is it going to take? I ask most people, how long is it going to take? How much do we have to suffer before we decide to do something different? That's a decision that's unique to each one of us. But at any given time, we have the ability to say, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do something different that's actually going to empower all of us.
Yes.
That's where our power is. It resides. It's where it exists. It's the essence of that. So.
I love it. Well, I'm sure we could talk forever, especially about all the questions that inevitably arise, like what about my roads and things like that. But maybe that's for another time. And I want to ask you, what you hope happens next from here.
Well, my hope is that we figure out what it means to have a valid contract with our world, and enough of us figure that out, and other people start prototyping their own document. And then once we have a document that we can say, yep, this is how this is going to be my contract with this world. I see it as just a matter of having a valid contract with our world and having it put out there, like having it on your own wall. You sign it, like this is yours, and you're able and trained to defend it. And I see it as just being an inevitability. It's just a matter of time for enough people to have to pull their heads out in order to figure out that this is our birthright, and that something like this document not only exists, but is available, and they are fully within their power to stand and defend it. So, make as long as it stays in alignment with the principles expressed herein. I know people have given me feedback like, oh, it's crazy. You wanted people to be able to get into a 12-foot and draw a duel. Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
If it's two voluntary consenting adults and, you know, some shit's happen and they got to do that, then there's perfectly okay.
Yep.
I say there's nothing wrong with that, and people having that option as long as it's voluntary and as long as it's consensual. And there are other means of recourse too. A decentralized analog for a jury trial system is what I think is going to be the real application of blockchain that will make the most profound difference on mankind as it reaches more and more developers realizing and figuring out the power of what this technology could represent and its ability to allow us to scale based on fundamental axioms that could be voluntary every level of the way up. I'm just looking for the right developer that will have the cojones to step up and help build something like this, because it's flying in the face of some pretty powerful folks, right?
Right.
But we've got to do it. The time is now. There's no other time to go about building our own. That's why I referenced that story in the Matrix, that last line. We can't come here to ask for permission. We'll never get permission. The enemy's never going to be like, oh, okay, you know, forget it. It's not going to exist. It's not going to happen. This doesn't work that way. You have to build your own and not ask for any permission. Just build it, and through its functionality, it will be known. Through its ability to actually scale and create a quality of life, it will be known. It will draw greater and greater attention, be implemented in more and more situations with various localized domiciles of mankind, all working in collaboration with each other through a fully scalable technology that we have via the internet. And as long as it's decentralized, I think these tools are phenomenal applications of trust and everything to do with the agora. But as soon as it becomes centralized, and now all of a sudden there's one guy on the pulse that gets a cut of everything, then we have a huge problem. And so we've got to do everything to encourage and bring about the fruition the former, and avoid like the plague the latter to the best of our ability. Obsolesce the latter. We don't need any sort of centralized systems any longer. It's about decentralize everything on the basis of what it means to be alive, which is natural law, objective morality. So nobody gets a tinfoil patched costume and says, hey, look, this means I get to steal.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Throw you in a cage.
Wait, no, that doesn't work that way. It's still wrong, no matter what. And it's so yeah, we've got to that is the inevitability. How much time it takes before enough of us figure this out? Well, hopefully I'll do the best I can to get as many ears as I can, so that Joe Rogan hasn't even gotten as many people as I hope to get with this.
Yeah.
Like, this is not even close. Like, we've got to get the entirety of mankind to figure out who and what they really are, and then how to go about being in the world voluntarily, consensually, in such a way where it's in alignment with natural law.
I love that. That decentralization is my second favorite word after freedom. So we speak the same language here. And what I know you've given actually so much advice and suggestions to people of kind of where to go or how to think or what to do. But if you want to narrow it down at the end here to put a little cap on it, what would be your advice to people who are just sort of wondering what to do with all of this next?
You want to pull that meme back up again?
Yes. There you go.
You want to zoom in a little bit and look at the lake.
Yes. Which part would you like?
Oh, other way. Yeah. Oh, look at the lake on the land.
Oh, gotcha. There we go.
Notice anything in the background of the lake there?
Some nice little consciousness enhancers.
Great starting point.
I love that.
Great starting point.
It's a good deconditioner for sure.
Absolutely. Every one of us should have this experience, a birthright. It's our connection with nature right there. So there's a great step in that direction. Just showing you who and what you are and all the different shadow work and trauma that has to happen in order for us to fully get to the expression of the top right there. That's one way. Another way is to literally, as I was saying before, I've got to iterate this as much as possible. If you want to scroll up to the top of the middle right there, that holistic gratitude of as who and what you are, the best thing anybody can do is experience a life where every time they think they experience gratitude. So that's the work. Tie it right there, like train yourself so that every time you think gratitude is present and accounted for, appreciated. You appreciate the thankfulness of gratitude, right? Everywhere, at every time you are because that is your true and most, and start there. After we get to the place of forgiveness, which the medicine also helps tremendously with that.
True.
And then so the first step of forgiveness and the appreciation can only come, right? It can only begin once one has made the decision to do something different. So, and that takes a level of really brutal honesty with yourself, right? Calling yourself out on ways where you maybe have been doing things that either condone or directly participate in theft, what you can describe as theft, violations of consent. Say no. Like recognize your real power, which is the ability to say no at any given time. Every moment is a new chance to say no. If it doesn't stay in alignment with your purpose, tie everything to purpose. All success begins with definiteness of purpose. That comes from Napoleon Hill, by the way, that statement right there, where if we recognize that if we just see what is really purposeful and true about existence, which is the 7 generations principle of mankind, then we align every bit of our experience around creating a type of world that you'd want for them, right? And just allow the dynamic experience of that to grow as you go about further and further aligning with your true and correct nature, which is gratitude for the ability to even do any of this anyways. Yeah. Like the fact that you're still here right now in the present, standing on the shoulders of everything that you've ever gone through, all the bullshit, all the great stuff, you're still here now. You have breath in your lungs. Hopefully unencumbered breath, because you told somebody that's going to try to get you to put a suckhole diaper on to fuck right off. But that's just, I wake up in the morning excited for a reason to tell somebody to fuck off about that. But,
for real.
Anyways, that's, I digress, but it's all part of it's all part of it. Once we get done with the shadow work of going through what has to happen, we've got to go through the fear, the ignorant self-talking, all of the trauma. We've got to revisit that and figure out a way to find appreciation even in that. Even in that, because that's what it took to get us here. If you had Cocoa Puffs instead of Cheerios for breakfast when you were in 6th grade on a Tuesday, right? You could have caught a hot batch, right? You make one wrong turn and now you run into a car at any time, right? There's any possibility of things that can happen at any given time. Everything had to happen exactly how it happened for us to be here now. And that also is another component and added benefit of gratitude, because you get to see it all for what it took to get you here. No matter what it took, forgiveness is present. And now in this presence of this moment, in this gift that we have right now, we can resonate in alignment and in harmony with objective morality and everything that comes as a result. I mean, as soon as we enter through the world of consent, there is infinite complexity. And it's actually been responsible for every innovation that has ever existed in the entirety of mankind. No good idea has ever required force. If you have a good idea, are you going to have to point guns at people to get them to do it?
No. And that's been the other thing of this whole thing. I'm like, if this was all so great and so wonderful and good for us, you wouldn't even have to try.
You wouldn't. I mean, that's the thing. If it was actually a good idea, it would be natural, right? It'd be a part of the good, the true, and the beautiful, because nature is beautiful. Nature is beautiful inherently. And I heard somebody say the other day, because of the beauty of it, the true and the good matters. right? It's the beauty of it that's actually the real inspiration for the gratitude, right? That the beauty inspires the gratitude for what's true to go about creating the good, to
I
go
love
about
that.
the experience of the good. So
It's the Trinity. It's the Holy Trinity.
it is. It's the direct opposition to the solipsists, the nihilists, the psychopaths. Not that. See, subjective moralism is called psychopathy.
Yes.
If somebody goes around life saying, "Hey, it's cool if I get to murder," right? Like I can steal, no big deal, right? No, those are called psychopaths
Yeah.
by definition. Don't make these soft words. No, they're sociopaths. No, these are psychopaths. They intend to do harm. They think it's okay. That's wrong. We've got to be able to stand in that. And it's very simple logic. It's not complicated. It just needs to be pervasive. It needs to go viral.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you were saying too, it needs to be at the center of your will and your purpose, that you know it and you know what you are, which ties into everything you have said the whole time. So thegratefuldisobedient.com, is there anywhere else or anything else that you want to share with people, promote with people, or invite people to connect with?
You know what? That's it. We have a little forum on there. Just a message. I don't think anybody's even taken advantage of it yet, because I've got the Grateful Disobedient Facebook group. You can find, I don't know if you can search it out, but there's a link on the website there you just saw.
Perfect.
You can click into that, and there's a lot of people. I don't know how long that's going to be around. I'd give it a week, frankly, but
Yeah, we'll see.
It's pretty much the website, because we've uploaded everything to all decentralized platforms. So they'd have to go through a lot of bullshit to take each one down. And we're looking for new platforms to upload to on a daily basis as a body of work, and just drop the whole thing at once. Every decentralized platform we can find for content, because this is evergreen content. Yeah. This is always true.
Right.
There isn't any, fad involved here. This is timeless shit. Yes. That we must align with, we'll keep it further and further decentralizing to the best of our ability. That's what we're after. That's what we're doing here. So
that's beautiful and perfect. I love it. It's been such a good conversation tonight. And Andrew, what are your final thoughts that you want to drop on people before we close it down?
Well, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to go back to gratitude being the essence of the self. That, I can't stress that enough. And so that the realizing that is the ability to experience the fullness of the beauty of the true and the beautiful. It comes like gratitude is like the soil from which the tree of love grows. So it starts with it's the originating. You got to give before then you can receive. It's part of a cause and effect relationship with abundance and in your wildest dreams, or your suffering. You can also use gratitude to create your suffering if you don't want to break outside of that. Gratitude is still there for those people, whether they know it or not. And so when working with them, I think it's a great thing to help figure out, hey, what is it about yourself? What is it about all this stuff that you're going through right now that you appreciate? It also is a great transmutive event for people to be able to take that perspective on whatever potentially ails them. So yeah, I think that's about it though. I really appreciate you doing this, like going through this and all. You've been on this path. I heard just some of your content, and I really appreciate the folks that are following in alignment with your work here. It's part of the great work. And I'd love to do this again, because there's more. There's 3 more slides where that came from.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we can definitely do it.
We're going to be doing a deep dive on all 3 coming up here, I think either tomorrow or the next day. Oh, so that's something that people can look forward to and check out if they enjoyed slide number 1.
Yeah, that was just number 1. Yeah, we're definitely in alignment with, the ideas and the content and what we're both kind of putting out there and trying to get people to understand. And I love that. And it's pretty awesome that we just happen to connect and find each other. And I appreciate you being here tonight and sharing this. And that message of gratitude there is really key. And I love how it ties it all together. And, that's why it's at the top there of that meme in that chart. And it's just, it's perfect. So
that's why it's the grateful disobedient.
Yeah, that's
and it doesn't, and my standard reminder that I leave every time I'm on the record with is, it doesn't happen to you, it happens through you.
Well said, and so beautiful. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your analog electric concentric dose of wisdom according to the steward and advocate for the next 7 generations, Andrew Benjamin. Andrew, thank you so much for sharing with us tonight.
Honor and a privilege, and thank you everybody for listening. Appreciate it. Enjoy.
Awesome. Well, you are not a slave. You've just been enslaved. You are made to believe in your chains and invite their encircling of your wrists and ankles. You've been tricked into accepting a role that is not inherent in your nature. You don't have to continue. Shirk off the yoke placed upon you by deceivers and bankers and create your world. You are a master. You are the creative force upon the earth made flesh. You can free yourself and the next 7 generations as soon as you choose to. And until you do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Nasty motherfuckers with a hook and a sickle. Brought to you advertisement, bone plated nickel. Fire rate automatic smash from the get-go. Snack on the whack fermented flesh disco. Abracadabra, archaic altars don't slabber. Hey, making jabbers with reality backwards. Hunting rap nerds, bodyguard collected actors. Munitions are famished, let them feast upon the dapper. Bloody bibs and muddy kicks, feasting on amygdalas. Iron fist, tyrant shit, APO will rip you up. The rhyme rainmaker, vein style backbreaker. Genghis Khan depleted uranium satellite lasers. Cloaked in anonymity, I know you never heard of me. No rusted tools used for Crowley style surgery.
Dissect a whole set, God body. God taught me to dissect the whole body. When it gets sloppy, I'ma get there. Rhymes rare like steak, get crushed like crates to create 52 states. And it's Baghdad, dust to towels, no rags. Straight melt dash, dust to ash. Turbans while the niggas perkin'. It's on purpose. My service touches the sun's surface, and rainbows touch serpents. My light all night shines so bright. I'm a star for eons. Hollywood's for peons, cause they try to copy the same shit we on. Hey, I ain't done yet. Lungs depleted and can't breathe, can't believe it. Trying to seek it while trying to peep it. It's a secret. Now you're nobody. Label somebody. Trying to claim John Gotti. It's yours truly, God body.